A Napa guy knows not to judge a man by his car's multicolored paint job or absence of modern gadgetry. Who cares if it's technically old enough to vote and the windows are powered by the strength of your left arm? Your monthly payment is zero, and it'll stay that way. Because with over 400,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep anything on the road. She may not be pretty, but she's all yours. That's Napa know-how.
Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good evening, folks. And thank you for tuning in with me once again to another edition of True Conservative Radio. And of course, I am your host, the man they call Ghost. And once again, folks, I want to thank everybody for tuning in with me. I know that I have scheduled this program about 2 or 3 times and rescheduled the program, and I want to extend my sincerest apologies for all the folks that wanted to tune in live to this program, and every time they attempted to do so, they found that this particular show, number 138, was continuously rescheduled this week. And once again, folks, I want to extend my apologies to those of you that are actually trying to listen in live and found a couple of days this week in particular that you couldn't listen in live because every time you attempted to go onto the website, I rescheduled at the last minute. And the reason was, folks, there was some extensive extenuating circumstances and the reasons why I could not conduct these broadcasts. And I just had to get that preamble out of the way before we move into this broadcast this evening. Once again, folks, before we go in any further, I'd like for everyone to please bookmark the official True Conservative blog at ghostpolitics.blogspot.com. Once again, folks, the blog is ghostpolitics.blogspot.com. And once again, folks, if you want to figure out when the exact time I'm going to have one of these sporadic broadcasts, the best way to figure out is to follow me on Twitter. And, of course, it's the same name, Ghost Politics, is the name to follow on Twitter. Now that we've got that all the way, folks, I hope that you've had a fairly decent life since the last time you and I have sat together and discussed this conservative commentary. I know that since the last time I broadcasted, there was a horrible, disgusting terrorist incident that has happened that has kind of captivated the consciousness of America, and that is the Fort Hood shootings. And for those of you that have been living under a rock, literally, the Fort Hood shootings, a alleged Arabic Islamic fundamentalist sympathizer that was actually in the armed forces of the United States serving as a clinical psychiatrist, basically listening into all these veterans that are coming back from these wars that America is finding itself in. This individual, I don't even know what his name is, Muhammad Jihad, whatever his name was. Unfortunately, this individual found that the only way he was going to maintain any kind of solace with his, objection to the wars against what he deemed was a war against Islam, this individual took it upon himself to go in to Fort Hood and basically start shooting people at random. I don't know, maybe it wasn't at random. There's still a lot of sketchy details about the whole Fort Hood situation, the whole Fort Hood shootings. And I want to go ahead and get into that. I don't want to waste any time because that has been the story that everybody's been talking about. And, of course, the mainstream media has been very intense about covering. And I wanted to discuss that a little extensively because if you listen into the last program, I briefly described how this ideal of religious Islamic fanaticism is not something that has any kind of historical precedent in Arabic culture or in Islamic idealism. This whole idea of terrorism and this idea of inflicting terrorism to bolster the idea of religious fanaticism as far as it pertains to Islam is fairly a recent phenomenon. I mean, this is something that has been partaken in by these fanatical groups of individuals in the 20th century. And in the last program, we talked about how the Treaty of Versailles and the breaking up of the Ottoman Empire is basically one of the root causes of one of many causes for that matter, but one of the root causes of modern day Islamic fanatical-based terrorism. Now, what we had here in these Fort Hood shootings, folks, was completely different. This was a moron that was born and raised in America. Even though he was of Islamic and Arabic descent, this moron was brought up here in America. And I guess he still practiced his Islamic religion, so I'm assuming, I'm not making any assumptions here, so I'm just going on pure whim on what I've been deciphering from the news organizations that I've been gathering from. Apparently, you know, this is an American-born imbecile who was so mortified by what he has been learning as a psychiatrist treating veterans from both Afghanistan and Iraq wars, and on top of which he was supposed to be some Muslim who completely objected to the wars in general. Now, according to all reports, allegedly, one of the trigger points from this stupid moron was that the fact that he didn't want to go out and serve in one of these tours of duty that was going to have him put in the middle of these theaters of combat. So instead of, because there is a way to not go to war if you're really sincere about not participating in theaters of combat, and you happen to be in the American Armed Forces. There's a little option there that says you're a conscientious objector to whatever theater of combat that you're about to be deployed in. You can basically just put down there that you just don't believe that in this war it's a bunch of crap. I mean, granted, you do get stripped of all your veterans' benefits and, all the cushy amenities that old Hasima, Hama, whatever his name is, the Fort Hood suspect. This individual, let's just be honest, he just didn't want to go out and fight. And on top of him not going out and wanting to fight, this individual was obviously internalizing. He was internalizing religious fanaticism that was, according to all reports to people who know him or people who knew him and people within his inner circle, they had no idea, how convenient. They had no idea that this idiot was, praising, a fanatical Allah or some crap, I mean, it's just ridiculous, folks. And once again, if we really want to rid the world, or at least rid America, as being the object of the scorn of the Islamic world, I think that we need to really reevaluate why it is that these morons are basically using America as the staple, as the venting point to their own culture's misfortune. Now, I am in no way giving any kind of sympathy to this damn religious Islamic fanaticism. I think it's ridiculous. And anybody who gives any kind of substance to it should be given a couple of smacks to the grill. But we have to really dissect this dialectically and understand why these damn motivated religious theological zealots and why individuals are so fascinated with this ridiculous idealism that they actually believe that if they kill themselves, by suicide bombing or inflicting as much damage or as much death to the quote-unquote infidels as possible, that this wins them some sort of religious significance in the afterlife. Now, what makes this so peculiar, this whole Fort Hood shootings, I don't want to get into a whole tirade about, things that we went into last program. And you can go into the archive, folks, at blogtalkradio.com/ghost. Check out the archive. We discussed this last program about one of the major factors in this whole Islamic radicalism, this fanaticism of Islam. Because, folks, this is a 20th century born idea. This whole terrorist crap was born in the 20th century. There is no precedent other than, the religious wars of, past, which is pretty much long gone, folks. I mean, let's be honest. These people were merchants. They were Middle Eastern folks. I mean, if you look back in history, these individuals were the middlemen between the Europeans and the East Indies. And the East Indies are China and India, were the crux of certain natural resources and certain spices and certain other goods that were sought after by the Europeans. They either had to make the journey themselves to get whatever it was in the East Indies and still had to come through the Middle East and pay a tariff or pay a tax, pay something, or they would trade instead of actually taking the tariff to go through the middle. I mean, you have to understand, folks, the precedents, the historical precedent within Islam is for them to be a merchant class society. But what's really unfortunate is that the reason that America has taken the scorn of, the Islamic world when we shouldn't have, which, I mean, we've already went through this last program, but let's be honest, folks. I mean, these idiots that are inflicting all this terrorism upon the United States are pissed off because, A, we are supposedly propping up their little royal families and all these pissing ground little Arabic countries and Islamic countries. They're pissed that we are buying oil from these morons. They're pissed that we're actually trading and making deals with these morons. Meanwhile, these royal families, I'm talking about these Islamic and Arabic royal families that are in control of all these countries, these individuals are subjugating, completely dominating their populations. And these populations already have come to the conclusion that they will never be able to infiltrate their bureaucratic systems. I mean, we all saw the attempt at a takeover in the Saudi Arabia situation, what was it, 3, 4, 5 years ago, when all those crazed gunmen attempted to raid the Saudi royal palace and attempted to try to take over the thing by military force. Didn't happen. And the reason it isn't going to happen is because the damn Saudi royal family and every other royal family and every other supposed Arabic or Islamic country, they've got it more sewn up than a damn drug dealer in New York City hustling on a block corner. I mean, there is no way that there's going to be a rebellion from within because those royal families are ruling with an iron fist. These are the same individuals that are chopping off heads on primetime television in these countries. They're chopping off heads, they're chopping off arms, and I mean, you couldn't even imagine the amount of just butchery and disgusting ridiculousness that these royal families are actually implementing on their own people. So when you're one of these people in these countries, that these royal families, they're the ones, being gluttonous, they're building gold palaces for themselves, they're wiping their asses with dollar bills, that kind of filthy rich. Here you are, you're a damn citizen of their pissing ground little monarchy. And you see the United States all the time, giving them money, trading. Remember, these stupid morons in these countries, they don't have an education. They don't truly understand what America's doing. We're just trading. We're just trading with these royal families. But these populations interpret that as us propping up these idiots. I mean, don't you Arabs and you Islamic morons, all you fanatics, don't you understand that it was the English and the French during World War I, during the Treaty of Versailles, that put those stupid royal families in your pissing grounds of countries, for heaven's sake? Oh, yeah, but they want to blame somebody because they can't take out their own royal families. They can't take care of their own situation in their own country. So when they're out here traveling the globe with education, little passports and, little pissing ground, little work visas in all these countries, you've got these individuals wanting to implement some sort of retribution. They want to implement some kind of jihad. They want to get a jihad. That's what they want. And as a result, once you have one terrorist attack, and then, another terrorist attack happens, and folks, as much as we don't want to believe that these terrorist attacks have any kind of substance, folks, we have given it substance. All the terrorist acts that these damn heartless, disgusting, despicable terrorists have inflicted upon us, we've given it substance because of all the emphasis and all the energy that we have focused on it. I mean, we have created, a stupid, half-ass profit iconism of certain individuals in this Islamic fanatical terrorist network, for heaven's sake. I mean, haven't you noticed that, that it seems to, business is good if you happen to be some Islamic fanatical terrorist leader? Haven't you know that? Recruiting's good, business is good. I mean, because not only do you have idiots funneling money through all these fronts, through all, throughout the world, but you also have the Saudi royal family and all the other royal families that are in the Islamic or Arabic supposed countries. They're the ones funding these terrorist organizations. They're the ones paying them to go away. Why do you think they're really not hitting up Saudi and they're hitting up, Western interests? They're hitting up America because they're the ones not only being funded within their own, economic slush fund, wire transfer mechanism of obtaining revenue, but they also have these ridiculous royal families, these same royal families that they hate. They're getting funded by them, folks. It's a fact. The Saudi royal family, they funded the Taliban. They help fund a little bit of the Al-Qaeda. They help fund all these fanatical mosques that are in every damn country in the Islamic world that is perpetuating this idea that if you kill yourself by killing as many infidels as possible, that it wins you religious significance in the afterlife. Anyway, I know I'm going off on a tirade, folks, but these Fort Hood shootings, this should be a real eye-opener for folks out there. Should be a real eye-opener to let you know that we're in a serious predicament here. We're in a serious pickle. We're in a serious pickle because the reason that this moron, this Hassam or Hahom, or whatever his name is, decided to go in and mow down a bunch of innocent soldiers within the base of an American military institution. The reason he was motivated, even though he was born an American, was because all these ridiculous, disgusting, despicable terrorist acts that have been implemented not only upon America, but throughout the soils of the international community in the name of supposed Islam has been given substance because of all the energy, both media, both populace attention, both military attention, country, international, institutional attention. This is what's given this ridiculous terrorist, Islamic terrorist idea substance, and that's why they're continuing to do it. And it's a disgrace. It's an absolute, utter disgrace. And another thing, that's really infuriating this whole idea of Islamic terrorism is not only the fact that the United States is being, interpreted as one who's propping up these royal families that are oppressing them in their countries, but at the same time, you've got this Israeli-Palestine situation that has added fuel to the fire. That's right. You got these, this Israeli-Palestinian situation that the United States has attempted to try to, I don't know, be the puppeteer of or the balancing or the mediator. I don't even know what you want to call America's position in this situation with the Israel-Palestine. But that's another thing throwing fuel to the fire to this ridiculous terrorist fervor that seems to be sweeping the Islamic community. So, folks, once again, I think it's disgusting. I think that we need to take a good eye and a good look within our own communities and figure out, and with all due respect to those that are Islamic or those that are Arabic or whatever the case might be, with all due respect, don't sit here and try to say, I don't know why you're looking at me with a bad eye. I walk down the street with my headdress and my turban, and you look at me like I want to kill you. You know what, Haji, don't be upset about people looking at a little, at the side of their necks and trying to look out of the side of their peripherals at you, because frankly, the Islamic and Arabic community has done very little to not only curb this idealism of religious fanaticism, but it also has done a lack of a job when it comes to rooting this ridiculousness out of their own community. And if they fail to root this fanatical garbage out of their community, then, it's only going to continue stirring this powder keg that eventually is going to blow up in everyone's face. And I'm strongly advising everyone within the community, within your own communities, to keep a keen eye on anyone you deem or you see as a potential threat to your community. And I'm not saying that you have to go out and cry to Big Brother and you got to go out and, I'm going to call the police and I'm calling this and, don't even need to go there, because if you do that, you're already eyeballing yourself by these politically correct bureaucratic systems that have been hijacked by liberals and feminists. They're going to think that you hate this person. Under these new hate crime bills, they're going to think that, you must have a prejudice against Middle Eastern or those of Islamic or Arabic descent. And then you're going to be the one that looks like the schmuck because you're out here trying to keep a keen eye on your community and keep it safe from a bunch of religious fanatical nut jobs that really don't even know what the hell they're killing themselves for to begin with. It's a disgrace. And you know what should happen to this Fort Hood shooting idiot? We should, put it on TV, just like they do in Saudi Arabia, folks. This is what they do in Saudi Arabia. If you steal a loaf of bread, if you steal anything in Saudi Arabia, they will chop your arms off and televise it to the people on prime time just to make everyone know that if you attempt to try to steal or do any of the crimes in Saudi Arabia, that you're going to lose a limb. Hopefully it's not your freaking head. But I think that there needs to be some extenuous, infliction of pain upon this individual who decided to take it upon himself for the name of jihad to go into a military institution and decide to start shooting up the place. I think it's disgrace. It's disgusting. And, frankly, I don't think that deserves any more airtime. Veterans Day was yesterday, folks, and I think that we all commemorated not only the unfortunate men and women that were casualties of that despicable terrorist act at Fort Hood, but also all the other men and women in uniform who have went out and protected the idea of the American way and protected the idea of the Constitution. Anyway, I think that hopefully the Fort Hood shooter, I hope they put cuts on his body and they throw little pebbles, little rocks, little salt-based rocks in those little wounds there, and then sew them back up and then kick the crap out of them. Beat them with a sack of doorknobs. Maybe I'm talking a little bit too emotional. Maybe I'm talking a little bit too hyper-sensationalistic. But, you know, that's about enough of these ridiculous malarkey about, you know, being politically correct about this crap. It's enough. Anyway, my heart and prayers go out to the families of the individuals who lost lives and the families of those individuals who lost lives in the Fort Hood shootings. And, of course, my heart and prayers always go out to the folks that are out there in the midst of these theaters of combat in Afghanistan and Iraq and other parts of the international community that they're out there implementing the cause of trying to civilize this ridiculous, barbaric world, and it seems to be getting more barbaric by the minute. Anyway, folks, I'm going to segue from that into something that broke yesterday evening, which, you know, I don't really mean to, you know, hop on the bandwagon of any kind of, you know, mainstream media personalities. But Lou Dobbs, that's right, Lou Dobbs, the probably only personality that has half a brain out in the mainstream media, abruptly resigned from his CNN show yesterday, effective immediately. I don't know if you watched the Lou Dobbs Today. You know, they showed some kind of tribute to war veterans or something of that nature, you know, war stories. But I just thought it was really abrupt, given the fact that you had Lou Dobbs, probably the only man that actually told it how it was on the mainstream media, basically told it how it was about immigration and about the economy and about what was happening here in the United States and the international community. I think it's rather precarious that this individual just resigns at the prime of his success. And according to all reports, you know, there's a deal in the works from a rival network that this individual is going to go out and, you know, try to go to a more right-leaning network, so to speak. And I'm not going to make any more claims than that. But the only reason I bring up Lou Dobbs is because, you know, we need more individuals like Lou Dobbs. I don't think that he tells the whole truth of the whole enchilada. But if you give a synopsis about the major personalities on television, you'll realize that Lou Dobbs was probably the only idiot that was out there actually trying to inform the people about these certain contradictions, these contradictions that are affecting society, that are putting us at a level where, folks, I know that there's a lot of people with your heads up your clogged up colon pipes, but we're at a point of no return at this point. And I've been yelling and screaming and hollering and breaking stuff on this broadcast for 3 years, trying to inform the American public and those that are listening within the international community that America itself is being flushed down the proverbial toilet, and there are too many contradictions to sit here and discuss in one program. That's why if you look through the official True Conservative archive of all the shows that yours truly has broadcasted, we go over each and every contradiction that are within the American system. And I'd like to think that Lou Dobbs, you know, being a mainstream media, you know, personality that he was probably the only moron out there that was actually giving people a little bit of the straight dope. So anyway, I don't want to make a big deal about that fat piece of prostate-infected, you know, well, what did he have? He had rotten tonsils, piece of garbage. But I just thought it was rather strange that here you have Lou Dobbs, one of the only idiots out there that is, you know, telling the American people how it is, all of a sudden calling it quits. Out of nowhere, no 2-week notice, no nothing. This idiot just said, I'm out of here, see you, I'm taking my cash, I'm gone. So, you know, keep track of Lou Dobbs, see what the hell happens to that piece of crap. Anyway, I want to go ahead and segue from that into the UN Chief Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. He visited the Senate earlier this week. Ban Ki-moon is the individual who's supposed to be the chief of the United Nations. He decided to go in, decided to pay the United States a visit so that he could somehow through excessive linguistic pressure, persuade the Senate that they need to initiate some kind of, some kind of global emissions cap on the United States, that they need to, have some sort of energy initiative, some sort of energy legislation that's going to put caps on CO2 emissions for the United States of America. Folks, I have not been a big fan of this ridiculous nonsense that the United Nations, and not only the United Nations, but all these European socialistic pieces of Karl Marx worshiping crap are trying to pull on the people of the world with this global warming garbage. All right, we all know about the whole big ordeal that's happening in Denmark, December 7th. This supposed, the renewing of the Kyoto Treaty, because for all you folks that are, big time environmental jerk-offs, the Kyoto Treaty was something that the United States failed to sign, and thank God George W. Bush didn't sign it, because we would have seen the type of malarkey that we might see if Barack Obama decides to go to Denmark to go and participate in this ridiculous renewal of this Kyoto Treaty. They're going to rename it something else. I said it, 4 or 5 shows ago, and I can't think of it offhand right now, but I think everybody should really look at this with a keen eye. This idea that you even had the United Nations chief, the man who basically is supposed to be the leader, the elected leader of the United Nations, coming to America, trying to dictate American foreign policy just by showing his stupid mug on the scene at the Hill over there. I think it's rather disgusting, because first of all, what this Ban Ki-moon or whatever his fruity name is, what he is suggesting that the Senate do is that they initiate an emissions cap on the United States of America. And what that means is that we're going to be limited to how much CO2 that we can put into the air. And if we go beyond a certain point, who puts that point? Who makes this litmus test on how much CO2 America can emit? I have no idea. I'm assuming it's the United Nations. I don't know. I don't really care, because I think that the United Nations and any kind of international institution that's going to dictate the foreign policy or any policy of America is a bunch of horse crap. And you should think it too. You should think it too, for heaven's sake. Who the hell is this Ban Ki-moon thinking he is, coming in the United States trying to say, oh, what you need to do is you need to put CO2 emission, United States Senate? Why don't you shut your ass and start doing your job, Mr. Chief Secretary of the United Nations? You're supposed to be keeping peace out here. That's the whole concept of this ridiculous United Nations international institution. It was supposed to keep peace. Instead, there's more war right now than one could have ever imagined. One could have ever have imagined. But he came out here and, tried to convince the Senate into, passing some sort of congressional bill that was going to put a cap on CO2 emissions for the United States. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, once again, what I was alluding to before I lost it there for a second was that when they put these caps on the CO2 emissions, and if the United States happens to go beyond that cap, that the United States has to pay an international tax. That's right, we got to pay a surtax on all these emissions that are beyond a certain point. Who puts that point? Who makes that point? I have no idea. But this is the idea that we are going to be taxed to death. The United States is going to be taxed to death by an international consortium based on this global warming nonsense. And what we're going to do is be taxed to death based on our CO2 emissions, and these third world countries, all right? I mean, these third world countries are going to be the ones allowed to have an unlimited cap on CO2 emissions. So that means these pissing ground of countries out here that, are, claiming that they were left out in the whole idea of modernization, industrialization. They're going to be bankrolled into modernization, industrialization based upon these internationally enforced CO2 cap and trade ideas that they're going to initiate based upon global warming. So my point is, folks, is that Ban Ki-moon over here, the United Nations General Secretary, whatever you want to call this moron, the chief of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, I think it's rather disgusting that this idiot has the audacity to come up into our country and try to dictate policy just by showing his mug in the Senate. You know what, folks? I think that we should keep a keen eye on what's going to happen here in this Denmark environmental global warming summit that's going to happen here, which is basically a meeting of the international powers to reformulate a new Kyoto Treaty. And I think that any treaty that's going to limit the output of any kind of CO2 emissions, because, folks, I mean, let's be honest, the United States obviously, emits a lot of CO2. And the reason we emit a lot of CO2 is because we're an industrial nation, and, we, have a lot of manufacturing, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of electrical plants, a lot of everything. So how are we going, at the drop of a dime, because these international socialist communist bastards tell us that, it's global warming and, we got to limit the CO2 that's going out there. Yeah, we got to do it because, with global warming, yeah. And, you've got, these leftist environmentalist jerk nuts actually buying into this whole malarkey. And they're actually believing that we should have some sort of, cap and trade when it comes to CO2 emissions. But what people don't realize, if you read the agreement, the United States is going to bankroll the modernization process of all the third world nations based on this new idea of internationally enforcing CO2 emission surtaxes or there's so many ways that they want to regulate or internationally regulate this thing. It's pathetic. It's disgusting. But once again, folks, I want to strongly urge you to please keep up to date with anything that has to do with an international consortium or an international meeting of global warming or putting caps on CO2 emissions or any of that malarkey, because that's going to affect you, it's going to affect your pocketbook, and it's going to affect you to the point where you're going to have to be paying an international tax for breathing. That's right, folks. Why don't you read the Kyoto Treaty? Why don't you read the new proposition that they're putting December 7th at this ridiculous Denmark Global Warming Summit, whatever the hell they're calling it. Take a look at it. They're gonna tax you internationally for taking a damn breath. All right? I mean, they're going to tax you for taking a damn breath. And what they're going to do is they're going to take how much you weigh. So if you happen to be a fat ass, beware, because you're obviously putting a lot of CO2 emissions out here in the air. And they're going to take your weight and your height, and they're going to calculate, some bureaucrat in some international institution somewhere is going to figure out how much your carbon footprint is in the international community, and you're going to have to pay a tax based on that. Oh, yeah. Now, give me a break. I mean, folks, I take a piss on any kind of international consortium that's attempting to facilitate any kind of influence upon American politics and American foreign policy. Once again, I don't see any use for the United Nations. I think the United Nations is a disgrace. I mean, it's done nothing but given power to these tyrants and these, idiots like China who have one-child policies and who are purposely socially engineering their country into having 5 men to every 1 woman in the country. Their one-child policy consists of, if you have a girl if you happen to be a family and you happen to have a girl, they'll throw it in a trash can. They'll beat its brains in, or they'll abort it out of your body. I mean, this is a disgrace, and you know, the United Nations, the great peaceful international institution that's supposed to orchestrate peace around here, they're giving China human rights awards, for heaven's sake. I mean, here they are oppressing their own people. You know, they're putting people in jail for political consciousness, for you know, not complying with the ridiculous communist regime and all this other nonsense, and yet they're giving humanitarian awards. Screw off, all right, United Nations. I mean, you know, once again, this is why I do these programs. I hope, you know, American folks, and not only American folks, this is also a global idea. If you happen to be a part of any country in the international community that's participating in the United Nations, I strongly advise you to contact your officials and your authorities and tell them that you don't want to have nothing to do with this garbage. I mean, you don't want to have nothing to do with the United Nations. It's done nothing. It's done nothing. So that's all I'm saying. I mean, you know, put up or shut up, United Nations. Put up or shut up. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and segue into another subject matter that I know that's going to get all the conspiracy theorists in a bunch out here. I know that I'm sure that I've got a whole bunch of conspiracy theorists listening into the program just to hear what I'm about to say about the the Federal Reserve. Yeah, that's right. And of course, if you have anything to say about what I'm discussing on this program, I'll be more than happy to take your call. 646-652-4869 is the number to call. But we're going to go ahead and segue and talk about the Federal Reserve a little bit. And the reason I'm talking about the Federal Reserve is because, you know, there's a lot of reasons, because a lot of news has come out about the Federal Reserve. You know, first and foremost, you know, let's not take a turn for the conspiracy theorist nut job out here. Let's not be Alex Jones worshipers or reptilian David Icke lizardmen, or, you know, let's not go off the deep end here. All right, we're talking real life. We're talking about real situations. Let's not talk about reptilian lizard men or any of those other ridiculous conspiracy theories whenever we talk about the Federal Reserve. Now, the reason I'm discussing the Federal Reserve is because Chris Dodd actually has a bill that he's trying to initiate in Congress out here that is going to limit the powers of the Federal Reserve. And what it's going to do is limit the Federal Reserve's regulating powers over the banks. And Dodd, according to his bill, is going to initiate a new bureaucracy, a new government bureaucracy, which is going to be comprised of 3 different bureaucratic arms that are going to somehow overlook the banking institutions and supposedly going to prohibit what happened here in this economic collapse from ever happening again. And, of course, you got Barney Frank, that disgusting, despicable scoundrel. You know, I mean, you know, Barney Frank is also initiating a similar bill limiting the Federal Reserve's authority and limiting the Federal Reserve's powers. And I think it's rather disgusting that we're seeing this, because what we are seeing right now is we are seeing these bloodthirsty, disgusting, atheistic, godless, despicable, long-haired liberal hippies and these bull-dyke feminists who are all about creating bureaucracy. I mean, you know what, folks, that's what I keep telling you, that the crux of liberalism and the crux of feminism is to create more bureaucracy, is to create more bureaucratic systems. Because they want more bureaucratic systems, because that's what they know. I mean, you know, when the communists took over Russia and the communists took over China, what did they do? They threw in bureaucracy. They threw in this government wing and that government wing, and they hired a bunch of bureaucrats, and then the bureaucracy became the biggest employing and the most powerful entity in the country, and it became a life of its own. So, you know, to sit here and say that we need to limit the Federal Reserve's powers and somehow the government is going to instill bureaucracy that's going to prevent this from happening. It's just a joke. It's just a ridiculous, disgusting, despicable joke. First and foremost, let's talk a little bit about the Federal Reserve. All right? Now, everybody who is against the Federal Reserve is obviously one of these nimrods that, watched one of these ridiculous cultist conspiracy theorist films by one of the infamous conspiracy mouthpieces, whether it was Alex Jones, David Icke, Peter Joseph. I mean, whoever the hell you heard about the Federal Reserve being this big, gangsterous, nefarious conspiracy is just ridiculous, all right? First and foremost, the Federal Reserve is a private entity, okay? It is an entity that is not entirely controlled by the government, nor is it entirely controlled by the people. All right, this is what our founding fathers said that we needed. We needed an entity that was not dominated by the people or by the government, that could issue out the money properly. And I know that the idiot conspiracy theorists are going to say that, I'm a shill. Oh, my God, look at him. He's a shill. He probably works for the Federal Reserve. Absolutely not. All right? I mean, look at what happened. Look at what happened up until 1913, when the charter for the Federal Reserve was enacted. You look at the American way of life prior to 1913. You look at industrial growth. You look at the whole idea of economy prior to 1913. It was complete monopolization. It was monopolies. Nobody had any opportunities back prior to the 1913. I mean, it was so bad that William McKinley, at the turn of the 20th century, or right before the turn of the 20th century, in like 1893, I believe, or 1890-something, he was assassinated, by some, ridiculous nut job that felt that, there was a big discrepancy between the filthy, disgusting, despicable, industrialist, monopolist rich and the regular schmo out here in America. I mean, there was so much leftist fervor. There was so much anarchist fervor. I mean, you know what, folks? I strongly advise you to read about the time in history, around the turn of the 20th century. Prior to 1913, it was despicable. I mean, you had individuals that were so, fanaticized by, political ideas. One particular idealism at the time was anarchism. Anarchism had a big prevalence in America. And, we can go back to the Haymarket Martyrs. The Haymarket Martyrs were a group of anarchists that were out there speaking at the Haymarket in Chicago, which was, at the time was a market that everyone exchanged goods and services at the time. And lo and behold, a damn firebomb was thrown into the damn crowd out there, killing, police, killing all kinds of people. And I don't mean to be calling the Haymarket Martyrs really martyrs per se, because that's what the anarchists call them. But let's be honest. I mean, why did the Haymarket Martyrs become martyrs? Why was there even idealism of anarchism at the turn of or before the turn of the 20th century? Why was there all this fanaticism of leftism, of socialism, of all this idea? And then because it was disgusting, folks. All right. Because prior to 1913, there was no equal opportunity. There was no economic system that properly facilitated an idea that made everyone involved with the idea of working. There was no playing field that allowed anybody to become rich or to become, semi-wealthy. And then 1913 came along. And the reason 1913 came along is because we had the crash at the turn of the 20th century in the 1900s, and then we had, the war. So they enacted the Federal Reserve so that they could properly dispense the money, and it could be a complete third party, someone that has nothing to do with the United States government nor with the American people. I mean, this was a separate entity here. And right after this, right after 1913, what happened? You had the Roaring '20s. Oh, yeah, I mean, everybody started getting rich at that time. Remember that? Oh, my God, are you kidding me? I mean, there was so much gluttony and sexual deviousness and all kinds of crap, huh? I mean, all this nonsense. I mean, if you look at the fashions of the 20s, of the 1920s, they were really decadent, really risque, I mean, that's when women started getting their true liberation. That's when women started smoking cigarettes in public. Remember that? That was a big to-do in the 20s. Yeah, and then they had prohibition, and they had, there was just complete and utter gluttony. Everybody was getting rich at the time. But you know what happened after the 1920s? The same thing that's happening right now. The same thing that's happening right now, okay? What happened was that the Federal Reserve gave everybody the opportunity to, somehow become something that they would have otherwise never, ever have been prior to 1913. And I know that all these stupid Alex Jones idiot worshipers and all these ass clowns are going to say, oh, my God, he's a shill. I can't believe he's praising the Federal Reserve. I'm not praising the Federal Reserve. I'm just stating the facts. You look at after 1913 and you look at the Roaring '20s, everybody was living large. All right? Now, why in the blue hell did the Roaring '20s, after the Roaring '20s, did the Great Depression come along? The same reason that the Great Recession right now is happening upon us, you morons. All right? Do you understand that in the 20s when people were getting rich and, people were getting fat in the ass and all this other crap, they decided to run their credit dry. That's right. They wanted to run their credit dry in the 20s because at the time they had a humongous stock surge in the 20s. And everybody was putting their money on stocks. And at the time, this was the first idea, the first inception of buying stocks on margin. And for you folks that aren't familiar with stock trading, buying stocks on margin means that if you have an initial investment of $5,000, let's say you put $5,000 in a trading account, you can buy on margin an extra $5,000 of. So technically you can buy $10,000 worth of stock by having $5,000 of it on margin credit. All right, and that's what happened in the 20s. People ran their credit through the roof, and then when the economic situation contracted, back in the day, it just went belly up, just like when it contracted here recently, folks. Our economy contracted. The only difference between the Great Depression and America today is that the Federal Reserve actually did something this time around as opposed to the last time, because the last time, I mean, I don't know if you folks remember the beginnings of the modern-day Great Recession sometime last January. We didn't know if our damn bank accounts were still going to be there. The economic situation was so precarious. And the reason it was so precarious, because the retraction had such a horrible backlash that it jeopardized the integrity of the whole international system. And the reason that it jeopardized the whole integrity of the international system, because if America's economy goes kaput, then the international community's economic system goes kaput with it. So when everyone was out here saying that we need to let everybody fail, that we need to just go ahead and let these banks go belly up. We need the Wall Street bankers to go belly up. We need everybody just to fall. And I was one of those voices at the time that said that, some of these banks, especially the financial institutions, not the banks per se, but the financial institutions that utilized the idea of them being a bank when they weren't actually a bank. They were a financial instrument. I thought financial instruments like Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns and all these other ass clowns, they should have went belly up. But you had other voices out here saying that, hey, we needed the banks to go under. We needed everything to go under. Well, that's what happened in the Great Depression, you ass clowns. That's exactly what happened in the Great Depression. In the Great Depression, when the economic retraction happened in America, That's exactly what happened. Banks started going belly up. And why did banks started going belly up? Because they had to call back the loans that they had extended because everyone was rushing to the bank to take out their freaking money. All right? And when people go to the bank to take out their money, well, the bank has to get it from somewhere, because what the bank does, you idiots, for all you folks that don't really understand all this financial garbage, what the bank does with your savings account is it issues it out in loans, to businesses, to ventures, to idiots who buy, $250,000 houses on $25,000 a year incomes, that kind of crap. And they charge interest on those loans, and that interest is not only giving the bank a certain amount of revenue, but they also, kick back you about 1.5%, 2%, whatever the hell your bank may have. All right? But what happened in America, folks, what happened in America was that people overextended their loans. Banks overextended themselves. You had individuals lying on banking and financial documents. They were, manipulating the whole system into believing that, okay, I can get a $250,000 house on a $25,000 a year income. All right, I can go out and get an Escalade even though I'm working at Arby's somewhere. No offense to the folks that are working at Arby's, but hey, if you're driving an Escalade and you're working at Arby's, your priorities aren't straight, you milky liquor. But this is what completely destroyed the economic system in America. Too many loans outstanding that no one can pay for. Housing loans, car loans, business loans. And it just ate up all the capital that was built up by individual savings accounts. Now, what is my point? All right, my point is that as opposed to now, back in World War II, back in the Great Depression, the Federal Reserve did absolutely nothing. Just as the laissez-faire free market people wanted. I mean, they left it alone. They let the banks go under, and look at what happened. People were going into soup kitchens. There were bread lines, for heaven's sake. I mean, it was a disgrace to America what happened in the Great Depression. And you see, this is what the Federal Reserve is doing now. The Federal Reserve is actually trying to remedy the problem without having the American people having to suffer. Now, let me explain this. Now, I want you to keep up with me when I explain this to you, because all this financial talk and the Federal Reserve and all this interest rates and all this crap, I know it's a little confusing, but folks, don't believe the hype that you hear on these ridiculous conspiracy theorist videos and shows and all that propaganda. It's garbage. All that conspiracy theory nonsense is there so that whoever is issuing these ridiculous claims can make some money. All right, that's the bottom line. These idiots that criticize the Federal Reserve, like Alex Jones and all these idiots, these are the same people collecting Federal Reserve notes and depositing it in a Federal Reserve bank, all right? And if you deposit your money into a bank, it is regulated by the Federal Reserve, so technically, for all you morons in America that are claiming that the Federal Reserve is such a bad boogeyman that's out to get you, you're out there collecting a Federal Reserve note, you idiots! You're out there issuing banknotes. You got savings accounts. You're writing checks, you morons. So that's why I keep saying that, this whole conspiracy theory nonsense with the Federal Reserve is garbage. You see, because what the Federal Reserve is doing now, instead of allowing the banks to go under, all right, they're making good on all the bad, toxic assets that the banks had on their books. And what does that mean? I'm talking about all the foreclosed homes. I'm talking about all the damn cars that were repossessed. I'm talking about all those toxic assets that basically drained the economic and revenue resources of every bank in America. That is something that the Federal Reserve did not do in the Great Depression, and we all know that outcome. Now, am I saying Am I saying that these idiot Wall Street banker assholes deserve to get billions of dollars in bonuses? Absolutely not. Now, you see, that's not the Federal Reserve's fault right there. These bankers that are getting these billion-dollar bonuses, that's not the Federal Reserve's gig. That's our government's gig right there. That's the $780 billion stimulus package 2 bill that they allowed the corporations to raid. All right? I mean, do you understand what's happening here? Well, what the Federal Reserve did, all they did was print out more money. All right, let's be honest. We're dealing in a fiat currency. And for all you economists out there, you should know what I mean by a fiat currency. As a matter of fact, America was born on fiat currency. For all you idiots that want to have a real true history lesson. So we're dealing with fiat currency because that's all that the Federal Reserve is doing is printing out more money. Now, what our government is allowing to happen, our government is allowing corporate America, Wall Street, banking executive to raid the American tax-paying system so that they can go ahead and put these big bonuses in their pockets. They can put these big bonuses in their duffel bags while they're robbing the bank, for heaven's sake. All right? So that's why I'm saying, folks, don't believe the hype with this Federal Reserve crap, and do not think for a second that, that ridiculous prostitution ring promoting piece of, call boy using Barney Frank, or that, health care insurance sellout Chris Dodd. Don't think that any of these morons, all right? Don't think that any of these ridiculous morons are going to be able to prop up some pathetic bureaucracy that's going to somehow be better than the Federal Reserve. And somebody's talking about, the Federal Reserve is causing hyperinflation. Oh, no. Are you kidding me? I mean, we've already been through this, folks. I mean, look, the Federal Reserve, the reason that they're printing out more money is so that all the American people, I mean, we should be so grateful about this, but we're not. We're just ungrateful, gluttonous assholes, to be honest with you. What the Federal Reserve's doing by printing out a lot of money is kind of lightening the depression or lightening the recession on America. I mean, this could have been a lot worse. I mean, people could literally be in bread lines and soup kitchens right now had the Federal Reserve just stood back and watched these banks fall and watch everyone's hard-earned money that was in savings accounts just wither away into nothing. Because the banks didn't have it. The banks did not have it. They had it all outstanding in those toxic loans that were given to assholes that decided to finance $250,000 homes on $25,000 a year incomes. All right, now, this is why the Federal Reserve is doing what it's doing. Now, it's not going to keep all that money outstanding forever, you idiots. All right? I mean, this was done in the 70s, all right? The 70s, what happened was, Richard Nixon decided to take America off the gold standard. And frankly, I think the gold standard is ridiculous anyway. I mean, don't you understand that you can manipulate gold just like you can manipulate fiat currency? It's really no different, you morons. All right? I mean, as much gold as one has doesn't mean that you're wealthy. And if you want to look back in history as a precedent on how gold doesn't mean that you're a powerful nation, just take a look at the Spanish when they conquered the Aztecs and they conquered the Mayans and the Incas, and they raped them for their gold. I mean, when Cortez went out and conquered Montezuma and the Aztecs, Montezuma and the Aztecs had mined unbelievable amounts of gold. I mean, Cortez couldn't believe when he first saw the Aztec Empire, the amount of gold that was just floating around and with statues and crowns and gear and all this other crap. So what did Cortez do? He conquered the Aztecs and killed everybody and basically took back the gold to Spain. And Spain flooded the market with gold, folks. I mean, at that time, they thought that they were the richest nation in the world because of all the gold they had obtained in the New World. All right? Now, what happened? Well, Spain, sure, they had all the gold in the world, but they flooded the market of Europe with so much gold that it made the gold and the price of gold and the absolute the value of gold go down the tubes. And to be completely honest with you, Spain fell out of power because they thought that they were the economic dominant ones because they were the ones that had all the gold in the world. So they had all the gold in the world, so that means that, you know, they were actually doing something. They were going places. No, that's not what happened. You know who ended up prospering after the discovery of the New World? The individuals who understood the idea of trade. The individuals who understood the idea of commodities, the exchange of goods, interstate commerce. That's who were the ones that prospered. The ones that took control of the natural resources, not the freaking gold, you assholes. Sick and tired of all you Ron Paul, all you Alex Jones assholes that are out here trying to insist that we continue to go on the damn gold standard. It doesn't make a difference, you idiots. I mean, Spain, you know, just read your history books and read about after Cortez's conquering of the Aztecs and all the gold that it flooded Europe with. It did absolutely nothing for Spain's power. As a matter of fact, they lost power because of their ridiculous idea of them having the most gold. For some reason, made them believe that they were the strongest power. It didn't happen, and that's why Spain fell out of power, and you had people like the Dutch and the English and all these Europeans, all right? All these Europeans, you know, basically conquering their supremacy of Europe because they were the ones that had the goods. They were the ones that had the natural resources. Not to say that I disagree completely with Ron Paul, but I don't agree with his economic stance. I think that going back to the damn gold standard would just be throwing us back about 150, 200 years. But my point is, you know, Richard Nixon had taken us off the gold standard. And once Richard Nixon was ousted, you know, because of that horrific Watergate scandal, well, you had Gerald Ford and his, you know, klutzy dumbass, you know, come in and, you know, basically screw up the joint. He was basically a lame duck kind of moron. But in the process, they increased the circulation of money. And they increased it at its most point when old Jimmy Carter, old peanut farmer Jimmy Carter, decided to come into office, and they printed out a whole bunch of money. To the point where, you know, we all remember the 70s. If you happen to be, you know, if you happen to have lived back then, everybody was waiting in line for gas and, you know, hyperinflation was happening through the roof. All kinds of garbage was happening. And it was a pretty stagflation type of time. You know, a lot of stagflation, not hyperinflation, but stagflation. Now, what happened after that? What happened? Well, Reagan came in, and then, you know, who was the Federal Reserve Chairman at the time? I think it was Volcker, or he was the Treasury Secretary. Well, anyway, Volcker came in and decided to raise interest rates. I think he was the Federal Reserve Chairman at the time. Volcker decided to come in, raise interest rates to 20%. And when Volcker raised interest rates to 20%, he called all that money that was outstanding back, and at the same time was able to regulate the amount of outstanding currency. And that's exactly what's going to happen with what Bernanke and the Federal Reserve is doing now. There's a whole bunch of outstanding money that's out here now. But when it's going to be called back, it's going to be called back whenever the recovery happens in America. And when that happens, these interest rates, these lovely interest rates that we love so much right now, are going to go up to 20+%. And that's all there is to it. Anyway, 646-652-4869. I just think that it's just utterly ridiculous that we're sitting here and, having these conspiracy theorist nut jobs talk so much malarkey about the Federal Reserve as if, the government system is going to do so much better of a job printing out our money, for heaven's sake. They can't even do a good enough job educating our children, all right? They couldn't even do a good enough job raising our children. What makes you think that they're going to do a great job printing our money? What makes you think they're going to do a good job, regulating the economy? Because that's what they want to do. They want to regulate the goddamn economy. I'm not BSing you. They want to regulate the economy. And, folks, by very definition, if the government regulates the economy, that is socialism. That is communism. And I refuse to do it. How about you? You down to do this crap? You want to be a communist? Do you want to be a socialist? Let me know. 646-652-4869. But I'm telling you, we should be so grateful that we have individuals that are actually caring about the American people's well-being, even though the Federal Reserve could do absolutely nothing and let the American people suffer, just like what happened in the Great Depression. They decided to play laissez-faire economics, and they decided to let the free market take its course, and a lot of people suffered. A lot of people starved. A lot of people lost everything. And here we have, the Federal Reserve attempting to try to remedy the situation, because it is a bad economic situation. I mean, if you listen to Bernanke and you listen to any economist out here, I mean, it's pretty damn bad. And the reason it's bad, folks, is not because of the Federal Reserve. It's because of our damn politicians. It's because of our damn politicians, for heaven's sake. These are the individuals, all right, in the 80s. In the 1980s, America dominated manufacturing. It dominated every type of product made in the world. Anything that was anything in the world was made in America in the 80s. Well, then these greaseball, disgusting politicians of ours decided to allow these corporations in America to ship the means of production outside of the United States into other countries like Mexico and South America and China and Taiwan, and all those jobs went with the means of production. So those individuals had to go and find employment somewhere else. And as, more companies left the country for cheaper labor, well, there was a void in jobs, and, they needed to go out and get a job somewhere, and it's all coming to a header right now. All the jobs that have left America and the lack of education, the lack of proper American education, it's catching up to us right now, folks. I mean, walk outside your freaking door and look at all the stupid people that are walking the face of the earth right now. Look at all the damn stupid people that are out here in America. I mean, they're stupid. I mean, this is the same people that actually believe that reality TV is really reality TV. I mean, what the get this crap out of here. I mean, what the heck's going on here? I mean, is everybody gone mad? I mean, don't you idiots realize that America is at a precarious point, not only economically, not only politically, but morally? We've got a lot of facets that we need to fix, folks, and to be completely honest with you, I don't think that we can fix them. I don't think that we can fix them, folks, because look at the majority of America. They're begging for socialism. They're begging for communism. I mean, they're on their knees, for heaven's sake. They're on their freaking knees. They're on their knees. And they're saying, please, give me another stimulus package check, please. Everybody's got a handout. You want to know why everybody's got a handout, folks? Because they didn't anticipate this economic contraction. These individuals were so anesthetized with gluttony and materialism, they didn't see the big picture. They decided to put themselves in debts they couldn't pay for. They decided to have children that they couldn't afford. And now that everything's coming to a header, and now that they're realizing that there's not enough jobs in America, that there are no true careers in America any longer, that nothing really pays in America any longer, they got their hands out, and they're begging. They're begging for another stimulus package check. They're waiting for another tax rebate. They're waiting for cash for clunkers, cash for crap. They're waiting for all this crap. And this is socialism, and this is communism, and I'll be damned, folks. I will be God. I will be damned. And if I'm going to sit here and go quietly in that good night, don't you understand that? I'm a conservative, damn it. I'm a conservative. And I refuse to sit here and allow my country to be flushed down the damn toilet while all of America is feeding their fat asses. We're supposed to be talking about the poor in America, huh? We're supposed to be, that's what the liberals campaigned on. The liberals campaigned on, oh, we need to help the poor in America. Oh, we need to help these single dish rag whore mothers who are shitting out 8 kids from 8 different fathers. We need to help these dish rag whores. We need to help all these idiots that screwed up their own lives on their own free will. We need to help them. But I don't think we need to help. You know who I think we need to help? We need to help the middle class and the upper middle class. We need to help the American working person. And if you're a person out there working your ass off, if you're out there working and you're gainfully employed, and you're witnessing all these taxes, all these damn taxes taken out of your check so that you can feed this disgusting, despicable, ridiculous, gluttonous, entitlement-ridden people in America, all I can say to you is do not fall for it. Do not fall for the entitlement trap. Don't go out there with your hand out, and don't expect this government to give you a goddamn thing, because once you expect that, you're giving power to the state. You're giving power to the government. And is that what you want? You want to be a peasant? Because that's what everybody in America is trying to be. That's what they're throwing away, the free market capitalist society that this America was built on. They're throwing it away to be a freaking peasant. They want to be a goddamn peasant. I mean, are you kidding me? A freaking peasant, folks? Is that what you want to be? I mean, honestly, a freaking peasant? Makes me sick. 646-652-4869. I'm going to take a few callers here. And, of course, as I look on the switchboard, I got a whole bunch of people from these anonymous phone numbers, these 111 phone numbers. So I'm hoping, all right, I'm hoping that these aren't liberal long hairs or a bunch of feminist muff divers attempting to try to call up and prank call the True Conservative radio program. I hope not, because I am not in the mood for that crap. Anyway, we're going to take a caller here. If you want to call in, 646-652-4869. All right, we got 111. You're on the air. Yeah, hello?
Hey, first off, I want to get to the, the Islamic stuff first, but I just want to say thanks, for giving up your free time to, try to help in this, fucked up community.
Yeah, but, no problem. What's going on, man?
Before that, the problem with all this terrorism and stuff is, you sucking my fucking cock, you fucking cock-sucking bitch, motherfucker. Fuck you, bitch.
That's great. That's great. And then you hang up on top of that. Everybody listening to this, this is our youth right here. Did you hear that? This is our youth. I mean, you could tell by the lack of bass in that ridiculous, ballless little kid's voice that he had no fatherly influence as a child. But you see, folks, this is the kind of crap I'm talking about. This is the kind of garbage that I'm talking about when it comes to these despicable, disgusting, ignorant American people. They can't even come up with a decent prank call anymore. You know, I remember, idiots used to, record prank calls and put them on a CD, and they used to sell them out there in the damn music stores. At least they had a little bit of originality, of a personality, for heaven's sake. I mean, did you hear this ridiculous, obnoxious, probably, some kind of peach fuzz on the ball having 16-year-old prick? And I would not be surprised if this is one of those Alex Jones worshipers or one of these alternative media ass clowns that are out here trying to agitate the true conservative radio program because I'm bitch slapping their little mouthpieces, their little Alex Jones, David Icke, Peter Joseph gods out here. I'm putting them into submission. I'm giving them verbal backhands to the point where they're just looking at me like they're a goddamn beaten wife because they know I'm yanking substance upon substance upon substance on the damn debating table. And that's why you got all these supposed alternative media ass clowns sitting here spreading all these filthy, slanderous lies in the blogosphere about me, but they're not going to sit here and try to challenge me face-to-face when it comes to the substance. Do you think Alex Jones, Alex freaking Jones, or Peter freaking Joseph, you think these idiots would want to have me on the debating table? I will make these morons look like mental midgets, for heaven's sake. I will cut these guys down to size. Do you understand that? I've got so much substance on the debating table, I will cut them down lower than a leprechaun's nutsack. And that's pretty damn low. But no, you got these young little pricks that come from single parents. I wouldn't be surprised if that's Octomom's oldest kid or some shit. Excuse my French, it just makes me sick. Anyway, folks, I mean, did you see, this is the kind of agitation that yours truly gets on a consistent basis because I'm a foot soldier for the American family, all right, because I believe that the family is something that needs to be preserved, something that needs to be, put and saved as an institution. I'm the bad guy because I want to shield our children from sexual depravity and violence. I'm the bad guy here. I mean, this is disgusting. This is despicable. This is why I'm saying, and I will continue to say, that the American public sucks. All right? The American public sucks because, you know what, to be frankly, folks, to be completely honest, all the hardships and all the contradictions that are happening here in America are your fault. That's right. They're your fault. All right, don't get me wrong. I place blame on the politicians because they're the ones actually implementing the legislation. They're the ones actually writing the crap up and passing it and allowing all the scumbag trash to happen that's happening in America. All right, but inevitably you idiots are the ones that are electing these stupid idiots, these imbeciles, when they give you the big smile and they give you the brown nose session, where they're out here kissing your baby with who the hell knows when those lips bend. All right? It's you folks that allow these stupid scumbags to continue to have power. You! And you want to know why, folks? Because a lot of you don't even participate in the political system. You don't participate in actually implementing yourself as a true idea, as a true force in this society. Because remember, folks, put it through your thick heads, put it through your thick skulls, this is a country made by the people and for the people. You stupid, gluttonous pieces of ungrateful Americans! You pieces! You're all ungrateful! You're ungrateful, for heaven's sake. You know why I say that most American folks are ungrateful? Because they care more about consumption. They care more about consumerism and materialism and gluttony than they do their own families, than they do their own spouses, than they do their own children. I mean, what your government has done, what this liberal regime is doing, it's selling out your children, your grandchildren, your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren. And do you idiots give two rats' asses? Are you even batting an eye at this crap? No! So that's why I'm throwing it in your freaking face. That's why I'm throwing it in your face. And let me tell you, you know, sometimes I get jaded. You know what, folks? Because I just have so much passion and so much fury for this idea of America that just, you know, sometimes I just get so jaded that I don't think anybody's listening. More people are out there playing with their pecker shafts. More people are out there tickling their dingleberry-ridden ass cracks to, you know, who wants to dance with a, you know, midget or whatever the stupid hit reality show is. This is what people are more concerned about. And this is why I can't stand it, folks. This is what pisses me off. I mean, it burns a hole in my damn stomach. Because I can't believe that no one else out here in America could give two rats' asses about what's happened. None of you people out there could give a rat's ass that, you know, your children and your grandchildren aren't going to have any kind of opportunities whatsoever because of your gluttonous, stupid lack of participating in the political system having ass. All right, and it's disgusting, it's a disgrace, and it makes me sick. Anyway, folks, I'm going to cut this show short here in about 5 minutes. But before I go, I want to plead with all those folks that are listening to the True Conservative Radio program, whether live or in the archive. I need your help, damn it. I mean, 2010's coming around the corner. All right, we need to spread true conservative commentary, true American commentary, out as much as possible. So I'm asking for your help. I'm asking for your freaking help! Please go out there and spread the damn word about the True Conservative Radio show. Do you understand that? Go out there and spread the word. Go to the blogs. Go to the forums. Go to the chat rooms. Go wherever you deem necessary. Email the show to everybody you know. I need your help, damn it. I need your help so that people can understand when they listen to my commentary that I'm not just some talking head out here trying to get ratings, all right? I'm not just some talking head asshole that's out here trying to sit here and make a few bucks off this show. I don't care if you people like me. I don't really give a crap. I don't care if I have fans or if people appreciate the commentary. What I'm hoping to do is spark some synapses in the brains of all the mindless American people that are walking this face of the planet that understand nothing that's happening around them. All they care about is their consumption. All they care about is their gluttony and their materialism. They need to slap their fat cottage cheese asses out of it. They need to slap themselves out of it. And what you need to realize is that America is at stake. America is in jeopardy. And if you're going to sit on the sidelines, well, then get the hell out of this country. Because we need to get people out from the sidelines into the front lines. And the front lines are right outside your goddamn... We need you to get off the goddamn sidelines and get off the front lines. So go out there and do it. Go out there and do it. We need you politically active. We need you to unelect these goddamn power-hungry autocrats that are in Washington today. We need your help. Don't you understand that? Don't you understand the dire situation? Do you hear the seriousness in my voice? I'm as serious as a goddamn heart attack. And I need your help. I need your help. Spread the word about the True Conservative Radio show. Go out there to the blogs, the forums, and the chat rooms, and spread it to everybody you know. And go out there and participate in this political system, damn it. Go out there and participate in this political system while you still can. Before it turns into some Karl Marx worshiping communist malarkey. Anyway, folks. I got 1 minute left in the program. I want to thank everybody for tuning in with me. Please patronize the sponsors, folks. It's just a freaking click, for heaven's sake. But it'll help out a lot. Please, whoever's sponsoring the True Conservative Radio program definitely has big cojones because there's a lot of controversy related to this show. So please, folks, go to the blog also and add the blog to your favorites at ghostpolitics.blogspot.com. That's ghostpolitics.blogspot.com. All right, now, please, I can't emphasize this anymore. Please spread the word about the True Conservative Radio program. The official link, blogtalkradio.com/ghost. That's blogtalkradio.com/ghost. Anyway, folks, the next program is probably going to be sometime next Monday or Tuesday. So please, make sure to keep up to date with the show. Make sure to comment and leave us some voice messages, folks. Go down to the blog at ghostpolitics.blogspot.com. Go all the way down to the bottom of the page and leave us a voicemail. We're getting all kinds of voicemail from people who appreciate the True Conservative Radio show, and we appreciate you. So please get up off your asses and go out there and leave me a voicemail, whether you like me, whether you hate me. I want to hear from you. Anyway, long live the conservative movement and death to feminism.
Boar's Head is bringing a slice of Japan to the deli. Introducing Boar's Head Ichiban Teriyaki-style chicken. Tender, slow-roasted chicken breast, coated in our signature teriyaki glaze, where ginger, garlic, and a hint of brown sugar meet for a flavor that's both sweet and savory. New Boar's Head Ichiban Teriyaki-style chicken. The bold flavor of Japan. Now at the deli. Only from Boar's Head. Compromise elsewhere.